talk about weather. In Texas, it is incredibly unpredictable, and these last few weeks have been no different. It's been in the 30s, then it's been in the 70s. The week before Christmas, it was basically spring-like weather. And so when it comes to Medaka, we've talked previously about how and when to feed your fish in terms of what the water temperatures are. If you don't have a temperature gauge or gun, one of those infrared guns, it's a really cheap investment. Thermometers are great as well, obviously, but for a modest investment, you can get an infrared thermometer that'll keep you up to date with what your water temperatures actually are. So that week before Christmas, it was warm. And here in Texas, you would be thinking to yourself, if you're new to this, weather's great, let's feed. And that's not a bad instinct because the fish have a water temperature that is comfortable for them to eat. They have a temperature that holds at a safe level for long enough for them to actually process the food, so about 2 hours. And that's great. The fish are comfortable, the fish can eat, not a problem. But what we often forget is that the beneficial bacteria, just like the fish, will slow down when it gets cold. And if it's too cold for too long, some of that bacteria is potentially going to die off. So just because it's safe to feed your fish, you also have to remain kind of careful about how much you feed. Because if you feed fish and you don't have the bacteria built up to handle their waste, you're going to end up with an ammonia spike and you're going to end up with a bunch of dead fish. So just keep that in mind. What I did in the week before Christmas, because I could tell I was going to have a week where the weather was going to be safe enough to feed, is I took beneficial bacteria from my internal or my interior aquariums and I put that into the totes to help build up that reserve of beneficial bacteria so that when I did feed, there was enough bacteria there to actually deal with the waste that they were going to produce so that we didn't have an ammonia spike in the wake of some decent feeding. Now, this week, we're going to have some decent weather, and then next week, we're going to have significant drops again. So I'm going to go very easy on the feeding. And if you're in a climate where temperatures swing wildly, or you do have a week or two of solid weather where you plan to feed, make sure that you've got some means of keeping your beneficial bacteria at a level where they can deal with the waste that the fish produce. Good way to do that is to take an old sponge filter from a tank that's inside and squeeze that into your tote. Some people are going to get in the comments and talk about cross-contamination, blah, blah, blah. That's a valid risk and concern. You can buy beneficial bacteria. Stability or Fritz are great products, and they're a great way to introduce beneficial bacteria into your totes without that concern. But it's also expensive, and I keep a pretty decent watch on my fish inside. I've never had a nick outbreak. I've never had some parasites, because I quarantine all my fish before they go into aquariums indoors. So if you've got that concern, you can certainly introduce bacteria from another source, like a retail product. But for me, I just take a sponge filter that needs to be cleaned. I give it a squeeze and introduce that bacteria so that when I do have a period of a week or two where I can feed the fish and the temperatures are safe to do so, I've got the beneficial bacteria in the totes to handle the waste they produce. Because if you don't have that, you can easily lose a ton of Medaka. Keep at it. Enjoy your outdoor fish streams. We'll see you soon.